Hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us here on Morning Prime, 24th of April, 2023. I'm glad that you've chosen KTN News as a channel of choice to inform you. And you had a long restorative weekend. You're ready for the good week that the good Lord has afforded us. It is Monday, and every Monday we have Standpoint coming your way where we critically analyze the political landscape of the day. Azmios now has it that next week it will resume the protest. They'll be back on the streets as well. And of course, they're trying to push forward their agenda as far as the bipartisan talk is concerned, and a raft of issues regarding the reforms that they want to be seen and steamrolled by the government. Also, shall be looking at the new debate in town. Not really a new one, because this was a debate that was there harking back to 2-3 years back with the Ministry of Housing regarding the housing levy. Now, the president is categorical that this will be, of course, taxed from Mwananchi as well, a 3% levy on housing to try and steamroll and make sure that every Kenyan is housed. This is also bound to spark a lot of debate. Remember, the NHF also was on it, or the NSSF as well. And we had the Federation of Kenya Employers also coming to the fore and saying that should have been more consulted with more stakeholders on it as well. I'm joined this morning by Wilson Sosion, who is the CS Tourism. We'll be joined also by Beatrice Elachi, who is a Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North. We'll be joined by Danson Mugatana, who is the Senator for Tana River. Also, we'll be joined by Senator Kongo Mugani, who is the Senator for Nyamira. All right, let's put this horse into a full run. But before I do that, let me just hear from Wilson Sosion, just to give us an update of where he's from and where he's going as far as the country is concerned, and the Ministry of Tourism as well. But more importantly, is to congratulate our winners there in London. And also, we shall be looking at the spectre of cults and radicalization that now we can see we have 39 bodies that have been exhumed so far in regard to the cult in Shakahola. And just drop in Wilson. So, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
You had a lovely long weekend.
Indeed, a long weekend. Yeah, but a quick snapshot of events around the world and within the country.
Yes.
Number one, the London Marathon. We've proved again that as a country, we are global champions, and several other marathon events across the world. And therefore, Kenya stands out, I would say, in sport tourism as a potential destination. These are opportunities that we've not exploited to fully attract sufficient number of tourists to drive tourism as a real big service industry that earns revenue to the government in terms of trillions, to at least 50%. This is the new emerging industry in every economy, even in industrial economies of where they do traditional manufacturing. They're shifting to investing more in tourism. Look at Malaysia in 07. They were receiving 23 million tourists against a national population of 22 million. Dubai Mall is receiving annually 100 million tourists. And these countries, they don't have as much products as we do as a country. Germany receiving 124 million tourists against a national population of 84 million. Look at London as a city, as a town. Just organizing London alone, it's attracting 19 million tourists annually. And we can go on and on. The Jamaica, a third world country, is receiving 3 million tourists against a national population of 2 million. But here in Kenya, we've got diverse products ranging from sports, opportunities, agricultural tourism, a country with scenic views, scenic sites of great importance, heritage sites. We've got a wonderful city in Africa, the city of Nairobi, that can be organized to be a great tourist destination. We've got our wildlife, and here we are receiving 1.4 million tourists against a population of over 50 million. I think it is almost time now we turn around tourism as a major undertaking in this country. And this was proved in London Marathon, that we are still the rulers of long distance running and sports in this country, so Kenya can be a destination of tourism. And other issues within the country, we've seen the cults and occults emerging, and
We'll
that's a
that.
security issue, and that we are happy is being dealt with, but lives have been lost, and this is an indicator of radicalization and emergence of cults in this country, that the government needs to be watchful, particularly over institutions, learning institutions, and our churches and religious institutions, and of course, I've seen that is in education, that debates about the future of education. And I'm convinced that Machogu, the CS, is doing a lot together with the government and the Presidential Working Party, and a lot will be rolled out in terms of getting it right for the education center. In terms of junior secondary, the subjects were extensively wide, the learning areas, without teachers, and I believe this is a matter that is being looked into, and also admission of students to universities. I believe that is a matter that should be sorted out now, and the university should be able to proceed and begin admitting students on new approaches to funding of universities. Otherwise, I believe there's a lot that's going on. The president yesterday pronounced further steps on one of the 5 pillars of the Kenya Kwanza plan, and that is the housing. And we believe with the success of the key flagships, agriculture, micro, small, medium enterprises, digital superhighway, the housing, and healthcare, because those are the commitments through the plan which Kenyans voted for. We believe once this is implemented, we'll see tremendous economic transformation in this country. And so, to me, I'm very optimistic that a lot will be witnessed in this country, and Kenya is a crucible for economic transformation in Africa and globally. And so, from where I come from and my traditional involvement in education, I believe a lot will be seen from education, and I believe we are yet to see big things in the tourism sector.
Right, that tourism sector, you don't think with the resumption of the demonstrations next week also is going to adversely affect your sector as well?
And that is not anything to laugh about. If we are engaged in activities that scare away investors, that sabotage the economy, you cannot be demonstrating every week, however justified the demonstrations may be. Look at South Africa. They demonstrated once on 20th of March, and they walked out of the streets. They've not gone back to the streets because we still need to care about the country. But what we are witnessing in Kenya, these are not demonstrations. They are extra constitutional activities, and to me, they are better classified as economic sabotage. There's been a commitment from the president, and which the Azimio accepted, and have appointed a 7-member team, which we've seen activities in parliament to inaugurate and engage in talks outside elections. Let us learn to be civilized as a country and encourage talks within the right premises and within the law and the constitution, and that is parliament. And we should not send mixed signals of insecurity, particularly through demonstration, to scare away tourists, because we are moving to the high season of tourism in this country, particularly with the wild-beast migration in July. We expect high booking by tourists, but with these activities, any cancellation is going to affect the economy. And when the economy is affected through decline in the number of tourists, I don't think that is the correct strategy of combating the cost of living. It is an activity of further complicating the economic lives and strives and suffering of Kenyans, and that should not be allowed. And anybody contemplating, if Azimia is still contemplating doing that, then they should rethink their strategy. It's not working in their interest, not of the interest of the country, and not of the interest of everyone.
Thank you. All right, let me just rope in Danson Mugatana, who's joining us as well. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
How are you?
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Fantastic. So we are still looking at the dailies. We're just about to see what is on front of most of the dailies today. But the issue of junior secondary school is what is on the standard as well. But I just want to hear from you over the weekend how it has been so far for you. How is Tana River? How are the people of Tana River? Good morning.
It is okay. The end of Ramadan, you know, our county is about 60% Muslim. So there are lots of celebrations. So we also enjoyed those celebrations with our Muslim brothers and sisters. So that was the mood basically for most of this weekend. People who are just celebrating the end of Ramadan. And aside from that, it's time for planting. This is a planting season. So I think from today, people going back to work again.
Back to work again.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us all. Kiptum did us proud as well over the weekend.
Yeah. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, his maiden marathon.
Congratulations to him.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I want to rope in also Okongo Mogiri. Good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
Yes, morning, Debal.
Yes. How was the people of Nyamira?
It could be better. They're fine, though.
They could be better.
The cost of living is really high for suffering. A lot of rains around. Children are at home now on, I don't know whether to call it a short holiday or a long one, I think for the next 2 weeks. So they have joined their parents and in terms of disappointments at the county level, I'm getting staff, including people serving the medical field, who have not earned salaries for the last 4 months. In fact, we're one of the counties where a notice to strike has been issued by nurses, clinical officers, and doctors. Not because they want a salary increase, but they claim they cannot continue working for 3 consecutive months without earning a salary. Counties have not received their revenue share allocation, so we don't have drugs in our hospitals as we speak. So things are not very cozy at the county level. I hope the government can do something and release the funds to go down to the counties. And finally, a lot of disappointment. The way we voted last week, we denied counties a chance to get an increase in their revenue allocation from 385 billion to 407. I was with the MCS, one for Wanyamatuta ward and Osamaro ward, and they are very disappointed with us as senators, especially the government side that was very firm in voting against the increase of resources. So in a summary, that is the situation in Nyamira. But by and large, people are fine.
People are fine.
Yeah.
Good to hear that. Gentlemen, I want us to discuss, first of all, a very pertinent issue that is affecting the country regarding the cults. As you can see, it's there. Let me just begin from where we are with the standard wasted time for junior secondary school is what is headlining the front page of the Standard this morning. Learners are back home, but for the Pioneers junior secondary class, it has been a period marked with numerous challenges, as highlighted by Wilson Sosion here. From shortage of teachers to lack of textbooks, the pupils have weathered the first-time storm. And you have this story well laid out for you on page 4 and 5 of the Standard this morning. And the return of mass action is on May the 2nd, after Labor Day. On Tuesday, this is when it will begin. Kiptum misses world record by seconds. And here he is breaking that band. Kelvin Kiptum breaking the tape to win the 2023 London Marathon yesterday. This is Kiptum's time of 2 hours and 1 minute and 25 seconds. Is the second fastest in the world. And you can read all about it in the Standard this morning. Remember, every Monday also you have your Health and Science magazine coming your way. Today they are turning the focus on C-section controversy, why it will never go away. And U.S. envoys there lifted from Sudan. Many of course, the expatriates are being lifted from Sudan with the current fluid situation there. Health, drugs, themes dominate drama festival. Schools put their best on display in drama and film competition. Housing fund to take 3% of salary. Oh, so that is what we're going to discuss this morning. This is not a new debate. We remember it was being broached also during the Jubilee administration, and it seems also the current government has picked up the baton to move with it. That is the Standard this morning. The Daily Nation is on the cult of death, and we can see massacre as 39 bodies exhumed from mass graves. The CS Interior has spoken about this. Kenyans express outrage at how the government has handled the matter. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation. Kiptum there breaking the band and making Kenya proud. What religion? Just to read the sub-headline, the shocking deaths by starvation or members of a suspected cult continue to be unearthed yesterday, with 18 more bodies exhumed at Shakahola village in Kilifi County, even as authorities finally acknowledged the scale of the atrocity as a massacre, quote unquote. And police now also suspect that some of the victims didn't fast to death but were killed before being buried. And as the search enters the 4th day today, the toll can only go up. And this story continues on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. Jitters in military police over Coast Guard medical scheme. That is another story that you want to follow on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Will down tools if April pay is delayed, states told. Union of Kenya Civil Servants and Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers warned of a nationwide strike if the government, which has acknowledged cash flow problems but has vowed not to borrow to pay salaries, fails to process the payment on time. And Mount Kenya restive over Uhuru and Gachagua clash is a splash here. Camps emerge threatening to tear Central apart over who calls the shots. This is on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Mystery deepens over 21 Carl's death. Kindiki orders probe. Police have 30 days to file charges against controversial sect leader. This is the story that you want to follow inside the People Daily. Mukumu girls, we suffered in school. Speaking in confidence to People Daily team during the burial of their colleague, Lanas revealed poor state of sanitation at their school. You can follow that story on page 6 of the People Daily. Kiptum laws eludes a record. Kenya-US trade talks now hang in the balance. That's in the business segment of the People Daily. Ujanja wa Ruto kuteka boma la Raila is a splash on the front page of the Taifa Leo. Rais amebuni mikakati kabambe kumnyang'anya Odinga wafuasi Nyanza. Also, miili 18 zaidi ya fukuliwa Shakahola. You can follow the story on page 5. And here's Kiptum also breaking their band. Avunja rekodi ya Gwiji Kipchoge katika London Marathon. And Kerry will allow used cars or importers to defer taxes. That is another story that you want to follow inside the Business Daily. And I shall be running you by also what is in Tanzania and also in Uganda as well. Uganda has 1,500 billionaires, it says here, just crossing the borders. But we hack back now to the story that I want us just to focus on first of all, because we have legislators here, and this is what has been for the last 2 weeks headlining our news regarding the deaths of this movement in Shakahola. And as you can see right now, the bodies continue to be exhumed, and the CS Interior has spoken categorically regarding this. But it brings back to the fore the question regarding religion, which is very emotive, which is sometimes cannot be legislated. The Registrar of Societies now, and the act itself is being brought on the table as it is. This is really telling, and the people who really bore the brunt of this cult are the children. Let me just begin with you, Danson Mungatana, on this. First of all, on the legislative perspective, because it brings about the whole question regarding how religion or how our faith practices can be regulated, not really legalized, but regulated in a way, because faith, you know, they are variegated. Different people have different faiths, they're different gods, so to speak. So it's a very contentious issue. But there is a way, if we look across in Rwanda, President Kagame has been able to make sure this sector is streamlined. That also, when we have clergy, when we have the bishops as well, or any other religion for that matter that requires leadership, of course, there should be some modicum of training. What is your assessment on the whole saga, you as you've been observing what has been happening and this body is being exhumed?
So I think the guiding law here is the Constitution, which provides for freedom of conscience, and it covers religion, it covers the thoughts, it covers different kind of expressions. But the question now is, how do we contain this situation? Because people have been asking, where was the government when these deaths were happening? So I will just start by saying, pole sana to the families that lost their relatives and loved ones in this cult. For me, I think there are things which are wrong and they are wrong. It does not matter how you cover them with religious, how nicely you try to cover them. There are things which are wrong and they are wrong. And they should be wrong for all religion that truly believe in God. You cannot tell people to kill themselves. You cannot tell people to do things that are an affront to society, civilized society, and then you claim you're following religion. So I think for me, there are things that are wrong and they're wrong. And something needs to be done, especially when deaths now are coming on the record. But again, we need to balance this with the constitutional rights that allow freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression. So we need, for me, my thinking in this matter, to balance it is, I think the executive should quickly get in touch with the religious sector of our society. It's organized. The Muslims are organized, interreligion is organized, the Christians are organized. They should set up a working group that will have to give proposals in terms of what their thoughts are as far as coming up with a law that will help us regulate some of these practices that are against what civilized society should profess. So for me, the minister for culture and heritage and whatever, that department, I think should take a lead in this, and the discussion should be wider than just religion, should include cultural practices that may be negative, so that we have a proper legislation that can be proposed to come and deal with this issue. But if government decides to go head on it, there will be resistance. So the better way to do is to gather a working group, which should be fairly representative, that should come with proposal within maybe 30 days, and then this can go through legislative screening, so that we as legislators then can add on the thinking around the working group, take this thing back to public participation, and then we get more ideas, and then we have a law that is acceptable to all Kenyans. I wouldn't go the Rwandan way, where the executive decides you should have only 10 churches in this area. It's enough, so the rest of you go away. I think that is the wrong approach, because churches are not like bars where you can say we will regulate. We only need 10 bars around this locality. So I wouldn't go the Rwandan way. I think that is, and also their political setup allows that. But for us, it would meet stiff resistance. So for me, let's have a working group. This working group should come up with ideas, propose a law, let the legislators pick it up, let them fertilize the ideas, and then let's bring the thing to first reading. Once the bill is on the floor for first reading or amendment of the Societies Act, as the case might be, and then that should go to public participation to further have it fertilized, and then we have a law. There must be something, there must be a structure, I think. We can't keep quiet when these things are happening as they are.
But was it that the limitation of numbers that we have in Rwanda, or was it just regarding also the intellectual input, or maybe some sort of, as I asked before, of education on what you're doing? Maybe a diploma, because even that one is in the registrar.
I think
the act of a registrar.
I know, but for me,
why is it not implemented?
I don't think religion we should go that way, because prophets have come and they have not had degrees, they have not had any training on theology or anything, but they have a word of God, and they can lead people into good things. And the prophets that we have followed, we have listened to, we have never been told they went to schooling, you know. I think even the apostles, some were fishermen, some were tax collectors, you know, and you know, some were just doing their normal things, and yet Jesus called them and they did the job. The people who are of learning were people like Paul. Paul was a learned person in the Jewish religion. But we need, let me say, we need a discussion around that. Because if I have a message from God and I'm a lawyer by training, how can you insist that I should have a theology background for me to preach? Some of the bishops we've had, like Oginde in Sitam, he's an architect by training. So you can't say that the burden must be specific to people with training in theology. I have a problem with that. Or even people with learning at all. I have a problem with that. So that's why I'm saying it is good to put these things on the table. We have the discussion, a robust discussion around that issue with people who are knowledgeable in those issues. Let us also look at international best practices, and let us agree that this is the way that we should do it. Let the matter come to Parliament, let it go back to public participation, then let us have a law that will sort of cover this problem.
So let me come to Wilson Susio and ask that question. What did the Registrar of Acts then envisage to do when they actually itemize some of those requirements, like diploma and a degree in theology? And we have the senator and the rest of Kenyans maybe who think that, you know, some of these callings, you cannot really subject people to training because it's a matter of faith. So even if you are a bishop and you're calling and your training is on another different, you know, sector, theology, diploma in theology or religious studies, does not really matter.
It does matter. And if you look at the history of Kenya, in terms of growth of religion, the training of religious leaders to the highest standards has been practiced in the major religions in this country. And the enforcement of requirements by the registrar of societies, I don't think has been done effectively as it should. And some of those gaps is what we are witnessing. This type of girls that have a free hand to do what they're doing, and you can see where they are in Malindi, in some isolated place, and we've seen this almost a holocaust of some sort, where we have a religion where people die in tens of numbers without the knowledge of government securities. I think let's call a crime a crime. What is outside the set standards in terms of the regulations? It may not be in a piece of legislation, but already is provided in some regulation, but has not been enforced. I think should be enforced, and we've seen it has been treated, the entire forest has been treated as a crime scene, and this matter is being cracked. I don't think Kenya at the age of 60 should be straining from existence of cults, when in fact the existing religions, we've seen religious leaders leading the main churches with the highest level of education and knowledge in religion, and so I don't think Kenya is short of, and that should be a requirement for any church, setting the minimum standards of those who are leading the various churches and organizing the churches and various religious activities. It is time we enforce such standards so that we have an orderly society and we enjoy our freedom of religion within the presence of protection of life and promotion of quality life, but not what we are seeing. These are actually criminal entities that should be dealt with as such criminally. But as Honorable Mukatana is stating, it's also time for the Houses of Parliament to maybe elevate the regulations that exist within the Register of Societies to legislative level, so that really we implement what is emphasized in the Constitution, the supremacy of God, and Kenya as a nation that recognizes the supremacy of God, but not existence of cults. We want to see orderly religious activities within the country. From where I come from as a teacher, it's a challenge in schools to sustain orderly upbringing of students through right religious perspectives. And we've seen radicalization of students, not only to this type of girls, but to other forms like terrorism. And these are issues that are real. We are dealing with a country that now the social ecosystem is populated by all manner of drugs and substances that threaten the very youth that is the future of this country and is the backbone of the economy. And so these are matters that must be dealt with criminally, and as it is dealt with criminally, it must be cured legislatively as well.
Okong Mogini, what is your view?
Yeah, Dibal, first really, that 21 Kenyans can be taken to a forest and they are forced to engage in an act that leads to their death, and the government of the day has no idea, is worrying. It tells you that somebody somewhere is sleeping on the job. If this was in a country like Australia, the CS responsible will not be in office. But in Kenya, we are treating this like a normal occurrence, and just discussing as among other issues. It's not something that should happen in a civilized country, The intelligence networks in this country, and if you look at the increase of budget for the intelligence units in this country, it has increased tremendously for the last 6 years or so. So that's why they are funded, to ensure that the intelligence gathers what happens on the ground. So first, I think as Kenyans, we are really saddened that this can happen under the watch of our government. It's something that should not happen if we have a government that is functional, that is supposed to protect the lives of Kenyans. Dibal, we can never challenge the freedom of religion. That is protected in the Constitution. And mainstream churches, talk of the Catholic, talk of the SDA, talk of the Anglican, they have very good structures on how they train their pastors. In fact, the most educated people are the Catholic priests. You will not become a Catholic priest unless you have studied and obtained a degree. Some have even 2 degrees, very learned. Their structure is so organized. The same with like SDA, the predominant church in my county. In fact, Dr. Nyakundi, who heads the SDA conference in Yamira, has a PhD. They have a university in Baraton where they train their pastors. Many of them go to Bugema in Uganda, where they are trained. And then when you come, you have a structure. You have the presiding pastor, then you have the elders, and everything that you are doing in that church, there is an accountability mechanism. So you cannot take people to a forest somewhere under the mainstream churches and nobody will know. So what I think we need to urge the government is to really look at the ones who want to abuse the freedom of religion. People who are coming up with cults. And the only person who can keep an eye is the government of the day. The only problem we have, Dibal, is that we have a government that wants to be populist. You know, you cannot say that I cannot touch those who are misbehaving within the church because I will look like I'm unpopular. Governments are there to make unpopular decisions as long as they are for the benefit of the larger society. There was an attempt, a very good attempt by the former Attorney General, Professor Gibi Murai, if you remember. He published regulations and he was inviting the church to come forth. So they discuss how they can regulate themselves. You know, the way, you remember how the Media Act came into place in 2007. Of course, there was resistance, but because we had a very strong president at that time, Mwai Kibaki, he said, let the media discuss and see what input they want to make as we put in place a mechanism for self-regulation for the media. That was the same approach for the church. But when there was a protest here and there, the government coiled and said, okay, we withdraw. I think that's not the way you lead a country. We need to take this head-on so that we don't wake up to another day where we see another cult has killed another 50. We must do something. We can't raise up our hands in desperation and say, oh, you know, freedom of religion, we cannot regulate. No. The ones that are doing the right thing, and the church is playing a critical role. You know, I was attending crusades on Saturday, and you can see how the youth who are on holiday, you know, get into the church system. They are kept busy. They are the ones singing for us. They are really, the church is really taking care of trying to build the moral fiber of society. But these cults that are really misleading Kenyans to the level of leading 21 Kenyans to die in a forest in Kilifi, these ones, the government must crack the whip. You and me cannot do it. The laws are there, the regulations are there. It's not. We don't want to go to the extreme, of course, of President Kagame in Rwanda. But really, we can do something, Debal. So the short of it is, let the government step out in courage and do something so that the church, the Christian fraternity, can hold a discussion. Let the government come with published regulations, and then invite the church to come in and engage in participation. There is intense public participation within the church fraternity. Then we can have something rolled out that has ownership from the church itself. Yeah.
Beatrice Elachi, good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
A very interesting discussion there, because this is heart-wrenching. You know, people who really bore the brunt are the children, and you can imagine where you are lacking food, water for so many days, you know, beyond a month or two. That naturally, sometimes, of course, it will affect your system. But when we're discussing about regulation, and we know, as Mungatana is saying, oh, you don't need to go to school and matters of faith. But critically also in school, I think they're taught on matters of on how to interpret the Bible, on how not to take, you know, a phrase or a verse out of context. And the principles, I don't know, of homiletics when they're doing their Bible schooling.
Well, first of all, it's very unfortunate. And you know, We normally say that Kenyans, we are very strong Christians. And I think people take advantage of that. And because of poverty, I think we've now gone beyond people believing that I might get whatever I'm looking for within this. And so we've gone, many of us, in religion. Some now go beyond religion. For this one of Kilifi is a very sad story, because now this one is, whether there is poverty, you have decided you want to go to heaven, so you are fasting to go to Jesus. It is absolutely very sad how, and I know it's because people have gone through a lot, and so you realize, is this the best way? But then, where are the chiefs at that time? The whole administration. And you know, the chief is right there. And he can't just be a whistleblower to just tell government, look, something is happening here and we need to see.
What if the chief himself was also...
That's what I'm wondering. Is the chief part of the process of fasting to go to heaven? And anyway, in all this, I will agree with Senator that we have to go back to the regulations. And the church, the religious fraternity, has to agree to regularize its own fraternity, unless you want now government to come in, unless you want parliament to come in, which I think it is time we come in, because they have been unable. Yeah, we gave them, that time, I remember Kibaki gave them a very good opportunity. And so this politics of shying away, it was not about shying away. We just need to sit on the table and have regulations. The other day you saw in Bungoma, they call him Jesus of whatever. Tongere. We are joking. We are absolutely just...
Jesus of Tongaren. We have Pastor John Pesa in Kisumu as well.
It is joking with the religion, and especially just a mockery to God. It's wrong. And so if the religious leaders are unable to sit and regularize their own guidelines, we will do it. In fact, as we are going to just do it, it's serious, because it is wrong the way now we have decided to take advantage. And even we just have to have regulations. Why would you have a church of 50 people? I mean, it's not making sense at all. Because a church is like, okay, 50 is okay, because we normally say it's a communal of 2 or 3. But then you have to be very clear in how you're guiding your flock, and that's why, whether we are Catholics, whether all the mainstream churches, everyone has gone to school, by the way. They have degrees. The reason is, within church also you start with children. And each children has a wish, that I would wish to be this. And so from the basis of the values of church, that is where people were taught, so that you get to understand. That is why if you wanted to be a doctor, it's not about, I'm going to be a doctor because there's money in that. No. It was within how you grew up, and you felt, I would wish to just go and save people. The way you used to wake up in class and who do you want to be? A doctor. And if you ask the reason, at that time, the reasons were never about it will pay me well or not. No. The reasons are, I feel I have a calling, and in that calling, I would be a doctor to do that. I would be a pilot. I would be this. And so in church is where you, from Sunday school, is where you start learning those values of your career, by the way, as you move. And you learn from the Bible, and that is why even Muslims, when they are with their Quran, you will see, as they go madrasa, they are learning. Same way with Christians. So you can't come now and tell me we've just lost 26 We have saved 17 who were malnourished because they were, as you fast, there is a meaning of fasting. You fasted for a purpose. Jesus did not just fast. And so when you tell people you are fasting to go and see Jesus, definitely you will not see him.
Right.
Definitely you'll be more angry
Yeah.
than what you're thinking you're doing is right.
Okay.
But because of lack of that knowledge, we take advantage. And especially in the rural areas, I think we have to look at also what are we believing in? Because I think we've gone beyond even what now we are believing in. Yeah.
I agree. Well, we take a short break. When we circle back, because you mentioned that almost 80% of Kenyans, we claim to be Christians. Yeah. So 80% of Kenyans, we claim to be Christians. Are we 80% illiterate Christians? But you're not Bible literate? Because even if we skim through the Bible and you read all about fasting, how will Jesus come to you? Will you fast to go to Jesus, or Jesus himself promised that he'll break through the blues to come to you? That is a question we should be asking ourselves. So if we've got it all convoluted as it is as far as the matter of religion is concerned, and how pivotal it is then to educate these illiterate Christians that are in Kenya. Right? Most of them are Bible illiterate, as you can see. Wilson Sosion, you're the mwalimu. You'll tell us. We take a short break. When we circle back, we continue tomorrow. Don't go away.